He used to be called Citizen 625726. He used to call himself Unbroken. When he left his dystopian city behind, he thought he had found paradise. What he found was uglier and darker than anything he could have imagined. This is his story. This is Inferior. Now available in ebook, paperback, and audio form. Links in the description. Like any game setting with RPG elements, Legend of the Five Rings allows for a great degree of specialization. This specialization takes the form of the different schools, essentially places where your character can gain certain skills. And if you want to acquire skills that are super special, you can opt for more advanced training techniques known as paths. Of course, what skills you want to acquire kind of depends on your character class. Yet another example of the RPG elements of L5R. There are technically several different classes like monks or artisans, but as a general rule, it kind of all falls into three very broad categories. The Bushi, which is your obvious fighter class, the Shugenja, that are your magician class, and the Courtiers, which is basically your social class. Of course, each clan has its own schools, and each school has its own particular techniques that you can learn. For this video, we'll be talking about the Courtiers of the Lion Clan, which in this case mostly means the Ikoma family. Because while, for the most part, anyone from the Lion Clan can go to any one of these schools, the Ikoma are the ones who run them. Which makes sense given that they are the dedicated Courtier family of the Lion Clan. Of course, because this is the Lion Clan, there aren't that many Courtier schools. As arguably the most militant of the great clans, though the Crab would dispute that, the Lion place more emphasis on martial prowess than political maneuvering. It's not that they consider courtiers worthless, again, that's more of a Crab thing, it's just that the Lion don't think that this is as important as being a warrior. The politics of the imperial court are ever shifting and nebulous, with plenty of pitfalls and plenty of opportunities. As such, each of the clans and their particular perspectives on what it is to be a samurai gives their respective courtiers a certain specific flavor or overarching theme to them. In the case of the Lion Clan, that theme is storyteller, which is appropriate as Ikoma, the founder of the family that bears his name, loved storytelling, possibly even more than he did fighting and drinking. Ikoma loved to boast about his accomplishments as a fighter. In fact, it was this that so impressed Akodo One-Eye, Kami founder of the Lion Clan, that he made the mortal his right-hand man. But Ikoma didn't just spin tales because he liked it, he did it because he thought it would keep his memory sharp. The past mattered to him. In fact, as Ikoma said it himself, mankind has only one failing, and it's that we forget. But the Ikoma aren't the only ones who concern themselves with the past. Indeed, as a whole, the Lion Clan is more concerned with the past than any other clan in the Empire. Lineage matters. The memory and deeds of the ancestors matter. The law and lore of the empire they serve matters. To remember, to record, and to relate these stories to future generations and even to the wider empire as a whole are all the most sacred burdens of the Ikoma family. For this, they are rightly named the heart of the Lion Clan. Which brings us to the principal and indeed only courtier school of the Lion Clan, the Omoidasu, the Ikoma Bard. Pretty much all the other things that I'm going to talk about in this video are paths that branch off from the Ikoma Bard. Every Lion Courtier recruited to one of the paths begins their training as a Bard. Traditionally, Bards start their training very young, age 6 or 7. at which point they are taken to be trained at one of two dojos, either the Open Hand of the Lion or the Honor Sacrifice dojo. Of course, the Lion being one of the most militant of the clans of Rokugan, young bards are also expected to know how to handle a sword. In addition to being trained to fight, a young Omoidasu is taught the history of the empire and their clan. Of course, as courtiers, their principal education is in the techniques that can give them an advantage in the slippery, though less bloody, battlefield of politics. Techniques like the current's pull, which instructed an Ikoma bard how to slip into and out of different situations like water. A skill that is not only useful in political scheming, but also in war. Very appropriate for the Lion Clan. Other techniques like Brilliant Glory and Master the Flow of the Heart emphasize perception, perceiving the flow of politics as well as spying opportunities that the Lion can use to aggrandize themselves and/or undercut their rivals. Prospective bards are trained very rigorously by their instructors, and the winnowing process is very demanding. By age 12, a prospective Omoidasu is expected to have memorized and be able to recite in full the lineage of at least 3 of the Lion Clan's families. Bard training operates on a one-strike principle. If a prospective recruit fails in this recitation, then he or she is shunted off to the libraries and will spend the rest of his or her life as a mere librarian, which is not at all to be confused with historian. Basically, they spend the rest of their life doing errands and looking up material for the actual Lion Clan historians. Besides doing the whole politicking at the imperial court thing, Ikoma bards usually fall into 2 categories: those that wander Rokugan and those who don't. Wandering bards will travel all across the empire, returning every year or so to tell the stories that they've gathered and to add them to the Ikoma histories. Each bard has his or her own set of scrolls that are then archived in the histories. This means that in order to find a record of a specific event, you first have to find the name of the bard that recorded it. As for the non-wandering Ikoma bards, something you need to understand about the Ikoma family is that because the Lion Clan is one of the most military-minded of the great clans, while the Ikoma family does have its own share of Bushi schools, it is still principally the Courtier family of that clan. That is its principal contribution. As a result of this, the Ikoma, along with the Kitsu family, who are the Lion Clan's Shugenja, spent most of the clan's history in an explicitly subordinate role to the 2 warrior families, the Akodo and Matsu. If you look at the list of known Lion Clan champions, it's almost entirely Akodo with a few Matsu thrown in for flavor. The first Ikoma to ever become Lion Clan champion was Ikoma Tsanuri in the 12th century. That's not to say that their role was not a vital one, or that the other families didn't acknowledge this. The ultimate proof of that is that most Ikoma bards functioned as the advisors to warlords and daimyo of the Lion Clan, especially to the Matsu and Akodo. All members of the Lion Clan recognize the Ikoma as both the heart and the conscience of the Lion Clan, the keepers of Bushido. Thanks to their memorization training, Ikoma bards can always be relied on to remind the daimyo that they serve of whether or not their actions are in keeping with the law of the empire or the principles of honor. After all, lion samurai are more conscious than any other that their actions will reflect upon them in the years to come, and thus may bring great honor or dishonor upon themselves, their families, and their clans. And so all but the most reckless members of the Matsu family will know to listen when an Ikoma bard offers advice. But Ikoma bards in this capacity were more than just counselors. One crucial aspect of respectability among samurai was the concept of on, or face. Samurai are expected to be courteous whenever possible, to not let their emotions show, because that would constitute a loss of face, no matter what the circumstances might be. The Crab, arguably the other great militant clan of the Empire, are kind of infamous for disregarding the concept of on, because to them, honesty takes precedence over courtesy. The Lion Clan view this differently. To their mind, ever since the day of Akodo One-Eye, they have been the clan that has cleaved most faithfully to the samurai ideal. And so maintaining one's own is a very important thing for them. Loss of face could bring shame and disgrace upon them, their family, and their clan. But samurai are humans with feelings. And this is where the other role of the Ikoma Omoidasu comes into play. An Ikoma bard is given special license to emote on behalf of the master that he or she serves. There's even a specific bard technique about conveying these repressed emotions called the Heart of the Lion. If, say, a great disaster or tragedy occurs, then the bard is permitted to express anger or grief on behalf of his or her lord. The bard may tear at his hair and rend his garments. He may curse the one responsible, swear vengeance upon them as well. Thus, the displeasure of his master is made known without the master himself losing face. With all that done, we now move on to Lion Courtier paths, which, as I said at the beginning, are essentially just variations on the Ikoma bard, and indeed all are recruited from the bards. First and most straightforward is the Ikoma poet. As I said before, the overarching theme of Lion Clan Courtier is that of storyteller. The difference between an Ikoma bard and an Ikoma poet is that the former relates their stories through prose, whereas the latter does it through verse. Pretty straightforward. Poets use their abilities not only to inform, but also to entertain, though apparently they seem to have only one listed technique of any note called stirring the heart, which is fairly self-explanatory. As a general rule, most forms of entertainment in the Emerald Empire are considered lowbrow by the samurai class. Writing and, more importantly, reciting poetry are one of the few performative arts that the Rokugani elite deem respectable enough that a man or woman of samurai class can do so without shaming themselves. The next two paths are so similar I have to question why there's even a distinction between them, the Ikoma Heralds and the Ikoma Orators. And I really do mean that both of these paths sound like they're exactly the same thing, because they both go off to battle with the armies of the Lion Clan and then, before battle, recite the stories of their ancestors in a way to inspire and boost morale. To give these recitations extra oomph, they employ such techniques as voice of the ancestors or the hand of our ancestors, giving their tales of great deeds and past glories extra emotive impact, inspiring lion warriors to fight all the more fiercely. The only difference that I've been able to find is that orators are simply taught the great deeds of the Lion Clan and then get so hyped up that they run off to join the army, while heralds are explicitly trained to be able to hype lion armies through their skills at speechifying. They can also learn techniques like the voice of Bushido, in which an Ikoma orator is instructed in how to use a war fan, both to convey orders on the battlefield and as an emergency defense weapon if nothing else is near to hand. The only other noteworthy detail is that the orators were founded by one Ikoma Tasaki following the end of the Gozoku. Tasaki was a devoted follower of the resurgent empress Hantei Gozo Hime, and that his speeches were so good that he was able to convince many former members of the Gozoku from both the Crane and Phoenix clans to either retire or commit seppuku. He founded the first school for training Ikoma orators after he turned 40. And now the final path of the Lion Courtier, the most famous one by far, the Ikoma Historian. More than any other role, this is what the Ikoma family especially is most famous for. They are charged with writing and supervising the official history of the Emerald Empire, which is regarded as a sacred duty, and one they take very, very seriously. One interesting thing, though, is that historians are recruited not just from the Ikoma bards, but also from the Lion's Shadow, which is basically the closest thing the Lion Clan has to a spy network. Interesting criteria, to say the least. Naturally, as part of their training, Ikoma historians are taught to memorize and recall any notable event they've ever seen or read about, so that they can transcribe it later into the histories. This way, it will be as precise and meticulous as possible. They even have a specific technique for that, the past and the present, in which Ikoma historians can train themselves to have perfect recall. But that's not to say that what's recorded is always true. After the first rising of Ichiban the Bloodspeaker, the Ikoma formed a secret alliance with the Shosuro family of the Scorpion clan, for the express purpose of protecting the honor of the imperial household by suppressing any information that might reflect badly upon the Hantei line. What the Ikoma really lent to this alliance was the idea of credibility, because after all, the Lion are one of the most honorable clans in the Empire, and as any Rokugani citizen knows, if an Ikoma never wrote it down, then it never happened. The perfect cover-up. Bit of an interesting dark twist on the usually upstanding Lion clan. But hey, who says life can never have surprises? Poets, chroniclers, storytellers, orators, historiographers. These are the courtiers of the Lion clan.